Chapter 31. It felt like the end. By the time Optimus Prime and Jazz had gotten back to the surface and taken some nourishment in the command post, Bumblebee's report had struck a note of doom through the Hall of Records. It was difficult to maintain any sense of optimism in the main reading room, where the window still looked out across the ruins of the High Council Tower toward the pall of smoke that hung over the site of the battle for Omega Supreme and the Plasma Energy Chamber. "Are you sure?" Optimus Prime asked. "Are you asking me or Bumblebee?" "Because he can barely talk," Prowl snapped back. "Prowl. I don't think anyone here needs sarcasm right now," Optimus Prime said quietly. "I'll ask again. Are you sure that you heard from Sentinel Prime?" "Yes," Prowl said. When he didn't elaborate, Optimus Prime prodded him. "What makes you sure?" "The signal traces to the last relay from the Badlands, the low-orbit satellite that serves everything from Slaughter City to Hydrax. Except for the spaceport. That was on its own part of the grid, but it's been cut off since way back. Beginning of the war, almost?" Prowl started to sink into his reports and intelligence gathering, which was what he always did when personal relationships got difficult to negotiate. "Is that your only data point?" Alpha Trion asked. "What else?" "The frequency is commonly used by the underground gladiator circles, usually for internal communications that they don't want picked up by the regular grid. That makes me think it originated from Con or Blaster City," Prowl said. "And when I started to backtrack the signal, the trace was eliminated by an anti-tracking protocol that dates from, anyone want to guess?" "Beginning of the war, maybe? Written by gladiator gangsters to keep people from tracking their matches?" Jazz prompted. Prowl inclined his head in Jazz's direction. "That's it," he said. "We used to run into this all the time when I was on the Hydrax Badlands circuit." Prowl had been a civilian police officer, working as a liaison between the militias of various city-states and the High Council Guard, which was nominally in control of civilian law. "So Sentinel Prime is in Con," Sideswipe said. No one had to answer. "What now?" Prowl asked quietly. Optimus Prime did not know. But he thought that the first step would be to withdraw all of the groups of Autobot guerrillas from the outer limits of their territory. It was time to make a last stand at Yakon, and they would need every Autobot to do it. He did not remember bringing the idea up directly, but it entered the conversation. It was debated back and forth, with increasing intensity, until an unexpected voice broke the conversation apart and reassembled it along lines that they were all ashamed they hadn't followed in the first place. Bumblebee was struggling with the hastily configured repair to his vocoder, and his speech was broken and barely audible. But knowing Ratchet's fix was at best temporary, he forced himself to join the debate. "A last stand? Well, we can't let Sentinel Prime just die," he said. "What kind of Autobots would we be?" The simple, some of those present, in moments of weakness, might even have called it naive, sentiment shut everyone in the room up. The silence went on long enough that young Bumblebee started to look deeply uncomfortable. Then Prowl said, "He's right. Sentinel Prime was never an Autobot. He didn't care about the movement back at the beginning," Jazz said. Ironhide stepped up, his face still shiny with fresh welds where Ratchet had put him back together. "He came around," Ironhide said. "Not everyone gets the message right away." "Yeah," Cliffjumper said. Jazz wasn't convinced. "But how long did it take him? How do we know the whole thing isn't a setup by Megatron? Or by Starscream, even? That Seeker's got more schemes in him than Ironhide's got scars." Ratchet poked his head into the middle of the argument long enough to bring the first bit of good news they'd had in some time. "Omega Supreme is alive," he said. "I put him mostly back together. He'll live. And knowing him, he'll force his way back onto the battlefield." The Guardian lived. They could all take a little solace from that. And when Ultra Magnus reported in to say that he and his band of commandos, loosely known as the Wreckers, had intercepted and destroyed a Decepticon armored convoy on the Aken-Hydrax road, everyone relaxed a little. The situation was still dire. There was still not enough Energon and far too much Dark Energon. The Decepticons outnumbered and outgunned the Autobots, controlling most of Cybertron and its resources, not to mention its space. Yet as long as there lived Autobots to carry on the fight, all was not lost. Will he be able to fight anytime soon? Optimus Prime asked. Ratchet looked down at the floor. That depends on what you mean by soon. I'm going to say no. More or less. I put him back together after he was blown apart in midair, crashed from a nearly orbital height, took a whole lot of shots from a whole lot of bots, and then had his trunk rummaged through for the plasma energy chamber. If you think he should be fighting soon after I patched him up from all that, maybe you need a different medic. And with that, Ratchet left. No one was sure what to say. They had never seen Optimus Prime be so offhandedly thoughtless before. Now he was conscious of it, too, and wasn't sure how to handle it. He owed Ratchet an apology. They would have to wait, though. Before he had time to soothe hurt feelings, he had a war to fight and a planet to save. Bumblebee is right, Optimus Prime said. We need to go get Sentinel Prime. Alpha Trion, that means we need to know where he is. I already told you where he is, Prowl said. Optimus reached out and put a hand on Prowl's shoulder. I know. It's good work. But let's be certain, and as soon as we're certain, we'll go. Alpha Trion went back into his study to do whatever it was he did and that he wouldn't let the rest of the Autobots see, and Optimus Prime returned to the large reading table on which he still kept the charts and reports he needed. All of the data on those charts also existed in his head, but Optimus Prime liked to see things in front of him, in the real world. Bumblebee, he said, tell me what you saw in Crystal City. After he had taken a few cycles to process what it meant, Optimus Prime stepped up to his Autobot subordinate and clapped him on the shoulder. Thank you for the report, Bumblebee. That was a bold action, and it was rewarded. It is good that we know this even though the knowledge brings no pleasure. Looking around the room, Optimus Prime thought again, how many times had he thought this ? That he was gifted with superb followers. No leader could survive without them. Now we go to Con, he said. Looking back at Bumblebee, he added, and when we return, we must do something about Dripticon Station. Unless we have already waited too long.
I'm glad you enjoyed that video/gameplay. Just remember to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below. Until next time, goodbye!